I'm here today at the National Museum of the United States Air Force. This museum houses hundreds of diverse aircraft that are historically significant.
Originally opened in 1923, this Air Force Museum is located at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. It is also the oldest and largest military aviation museum in the world. Within the 4 hangars at the Air Force Museum, veterans can be seen from all over the world walking around to get another glimpse of the aircraft they worked on or flew during their time of service. There are more than a few exhibits and planes at the museum that never cease to draw a crowd. At the World War II collection, the B-29 boxcar that dropped the atomic bomb on Nagasaki, Japan, gathers daily attention due to its historical significance. The early years collection at the museum exhibits lots of Wilbur and Orville Wright history, and even displays a replica of their 1909 flying machine, the third plane ever to fly. Many of the aeronautical engineering techniques that we still use today were developed by Orville and Wilbur Wright, one of which was the wind tunnel. This invention helped replicate wind resistance experienced while in flight. While walking between hangars, we see a transition from one collection to the next. One can see the NASA space exhibits as well as the Cold War collection, where visitors can see used astronaut suits, Apollo mission pods, and even decommissioned missiles. The NASA collection also includes a Titan IVB space launch vehicle, Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo spacecraft, and many other NASA artifacts and a variety of astronaut equipment. A specific selection of planes that I will be looking at today are the numerous presidential planes that the United States Air Force Museum houses. The National Museum of the United States Air Force is home to 4 planes that were the personal aircraft to the President of the United States. The planes being the Independence, the personal plane of President Truman, the Sacred Crow, President Franklin Roosevelt, the Columbine III, the personal plane of President Eisenhower, and the famous Boeing VC-137C, nicknamed Sam, which served as John Fitzgerald Kennedy's Air Force One.
Directly behind me is the 1961 Air Force One presidential plane. This plane flew many presidents throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Names that come to mind: John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Nixon, and Ronald Reagan. This is the exact plane that Kennedy flew to Dallas in 1963 and was eventually flown back on after his assassination.
The significance of President Kennedy's Air Force One is that it represents a devastating loss to our country, and it helps us better understand the horrific assassination of an American president. Not only was Kennedy's body carried back to Washington on this plane, but the then Vice President, Lyndon Johnson, was sworn into office while the plane was on its way back to D.C. While at the museum, I had the pleasure of meeting and talking with Air Force Museum volunteer Danny Bowen. Danny worked aboard the plane during the 1980s and 1990s and was kind enough to give me an interview.
My name is Danny Bowen, and I was a crew chief on Air Force One. The airplane that's behind me is 26000. It served 8 presidents from Kennedy all the way through Bill Clinton flew on it. Nixon went to China on this aircraft, and also when the Queen of England came over in the early 80s, they gave her their airplane to travel the country and tour the country, and then it served till approximately 1990 as Air Force One. It left us and then eventually came to the museum in 1998. We have, as far as presidential aircraft, we have Sacred Cow here, which was Roosevelt's airplane. We have the Independence, which was Truman's airplane. And we also have the Columbine III, which is the Eisenhower's airplane. So we have quite the collection of presidential aircraft. And then as far as maintenance, as far as aircraft maintenance, we maintain the airplane at home. We didn't travel with the airplane with the 707, but once we got the 747, we started traveling with the 47 to maintain it on the road. So I was able to fly with Bush Sr. and a couple trips with Clinton before I retired from the military in June of 1994.
When the museum acquired Kennedy's Air Force One in 2016, Danny donated his uniform. They hastily asked for his assistance with educating about the plane, and he has been a volunteer ever since. Danny gave me a tour of the presidential planes and spoke to me about his time as a crew chief of the famous Air Force One. When I asked Danny what it was like flying with the different presidents of the United States, he jokingly replied, "If we ever had to speak with the president, something was typically wrong. As long as everything was going smoothly, we had no reason to speak with the president." Outside the museum, there's a vast garden of memorials and monuments that visitors can walk through and pay tribute to while grasping the significance their efforts have had on world history. The National Museum of the United States Air Force is one of the many historically rich areas of the Dayton, Ohio region. The aircraft it displays and preserves will forever have made an impact on world history. Its significance is as highly regarded as any and can be enjoyed by all who venture to see it.